In the Mexica worldview, corn was not a simple crop. It was the basis of life itself. The ancients said that the gods molded the first man and the first woman from their mass, thus giving them body and spirit. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was the one who descended to the underworld to obtain the grains and deliver them to men in the fertile lands of the Valley of Mexico. The corn was grown with millimeter precision. Mexican peasants used the agricultural calendar to sow and harvest at the exact time, caring for each plant as if it were a child. But corn alone was not enough. It had to be nixtamalized, a process in which the grains were served with lime to release their nutrients. This discovery, more than a technique, was a gift of ancient wisdom. Like this. The corn became dough ready to prepare tortillas, tamales, and atolls. For a warrior, the omelet was his bread and his strength could wrap jerky, beans or chili in it and eat on the go. Tamales wrapped in corn or banana leaves could last for days without spoiling, making them ideal for long military campaigns. The atole, for its part, gave them heat and energy before going out into battle. In the cold mornings of the Altiplano, corn, more than a food, was a direct connection with the gods, and when eating it, the warrior felt that he carried the sacred strength of his ancestors in his stomach. The Mexicans knew the secret of survival, the perfect combination of corn, beans and pumpkin grown together in the milpa system. The bean climbed up the stalks of the corn, taking advantage of its natural support, while its roots enriched the soil with nitrogen. The pumpkin, with its broad leaves, covered the ground, retaining moisture and preventing unwanted weeds from growing. This triad was not only efficient in the field, but also in the body. Corn provided carbohydrates and energy, beans, protein and iron. Pumpkin, vitamins and healthy oils. In military campaigns, warriors carried cloth bags of roasted beans and dried pumpkin that they could eat as a snack or cook quickly over improvised fires. They needed no more to march for hours and remain steadfast in combat. In everyday life, the pumpkin took full advantage of the pulp in stews, the flowers in soups, and the sweets, stuffed petals and toasted seeds. As a botanical high in healthy fats, this diet was not a luxury, but pure resistance strategy. Amaranth or huautli was considered a sacred food. Small seeds full of energy, rich in protein, vitamins and minerals. It was used to make breads and balls mixed with maguey honey, perfect for giving strength before a fight. But amaranth not only nourished the body, it had a deep religious meaning. During certain festivals, figures of the gods were molded from amaranth mass and distributed among the warriors as a symbolic act of union with the divine. Cocoa, on the other hand, was the privilege of the elite, nobles, priests, and high-ranking warriors. You didn't eat, you drank. Ground and mixed with water, chili and achiote, it became a thick, bitter and stimulating drink. It wasn't a dessert, it was a power potion. On the eve of battles, some captains drank cocoa before haranguing their troops. Its effect was physical and psychological. The bitterness awakened the senses and the heat of the drink ignited the determination to fight to the end. The Mexicans did not have livestock like the one that arrived later with the Spanish. Their animal protein came from the house, fishing and breeding of native species. Ducks and geese were raised in the chinampas and lakes, whose meat was roasted or stewed. In the jungles and mountains, deer and rabbits were hunted. Commercial nets brought dried and salted fish from the coasts, which could be kept for months. A special source of protein was the Soloitzcuintle dog, although today we know it as a companion dog. In Mexican times it was also bred for consumption, especially at ritual banquets. Eating their flesh was not an everyday act, but part of special ceremonies. In addition, the warriors took advantage of protein-rich insects such as chapulines, aguautle, fly eggs and maguey worms. These foods, although small, were real energy pumps in Mexican cuisine. Taste and health went hand in hand. Chili was not only itchy. Its capsaicin helped preserve food and had medicinal properties. There were fresh, dried, smoked chili peppers, each 1.1 aroma and a different use. Sweet and sour tomatoes were mixed in sauces with herbs such as epazote, which improved digestion and drove away intestinal parasites. Huauzontle, similar to broccoli, was eaten fried or in broths and provided essential minerals. These combinations were not accidental. A warrior needed a strong, disease-resistant stomach. The diet, more than a simple menu, was a shield against hunger and weakness, the most controversial and obscure part of the Mexican diet. It was tied to his religious beliefs. Spanish chroniclers recorded that in certain ceremonies dedicated to Huitzilopochtli human sacrifices were carried out, and in very specific contexts, part of the flesh of the defeated enemy was consumed. This act was not out of hunger, but out of symbolism. To eat a piece of the opponent's flesh was to them to absorb his strength and his courage. Only certain high-ranking warriors participated in these rituals and always within the framework of a religious celebration. It was a deeply spiritual act, incomprehensible from a modern vision but perfectly coherent with the Mexican worldview, in which war and religion were intertwined. Moving an army wasn't just a matter of marching, it had to be fed. The Mexicas carried magazines with baskets full of tortillas, tamales, dried beans and ground chili. Dried fish and smoked meat were stored in leather bags to withstand the journey. Supply posts were set up in allied areas and tributary peoples sent food as part of their obligation to the empire. Thanks to this network, an army could advance for weeks without running out of supplies. Food wasn't just nourishing, it was morale. A well-fed warrior fought harder, and a hungry troop might crumble before seeing the enemy. Food wasn't a luxury, it was part of training. A warrior who ate well could withstand whole days of sun, rain, and combat. Before a big battle, ritual fasts were performed followed by banquets to charge the spirit. Even in death, the warrior carried with him the strength of corn, chili and cocoa, as it was believed that these energies would accompany him on his journey to the paradise of the sun. Today, centuries later, many of those ingredients are still on our table. The corn in the omelets, the beans, the chili and even the amaranth are a distant echo of that war diet. Is eating them somehow? Bite a piece of history. In the Mexica Empire, what was eaten not only nourished the body, but also spoke of the place that each person occupied in society. Not all foods were available to everyone. Cocoa, for example, was so valuable that it functioned as currency. A cup of this thick, bitter drink was the privilege of distinguished warriors, priests and nobles. Royal banquets. They were a show of power in the palaces, Moctezuma and the nobility. They tasted an impressive variety of dishes. Fish brought fresh from the Gulf of Mexico, exotic fruits from the hotlands, stews made with spices and rare herbs. Meanwhile, the common people, including young warriors in training. They ate mostly tortillas, beans, pumpkin, chili, and local herbs. However, this simple diet was enough to forge endurance and strength. In war, everyone ate the same thing. Whatever could be carried, preserved, and distributed on the battlefield. He recognized no titles or privileges, only full or empty stomachs. The difference was in ritual and meaning. For an elite warrior, drinking cocoa before a fight was not just a taste. It was a reminder that he was fighting in the name of the sun, his god and his lineage. More than 500 years later, the echo of the Aztec diet is still alive in Mexico. Corn continues to be the heart of the table in tortillas, tamales, atolls, and the endless preparations that we inherit: beans, pumpkin, chili. Amaranth and cocoa are still present, although transformed, due to time and the arrival of new ingredients after the conquest. Modern dishes like mole combine chiles, cocoa and spices, recalling the intense flavor that once energized warriors. The crunchy sauces, the cocoa drinks, the amaranth joys. All this is a living vestige of that culture. Who knew how to turn food into strength and faith? Today, when a Mexican eats a freshly made omelette or drinks a hot atole in the early hours of the morning, without knowing it, he is repeating a gesture that thousands of warriors made before marching into battle. The flavor, tradition, and energy of the past continue to travel in every bite. The diet of an Aztec warrior did not disappear. It evolved, adapted, and thrived by blending into its surroundings. For food, much like the rich tapestry of history, consistently discovers a way to persist and continue its struggle.